Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most controversial topics in U.S. history, when the CIA helped overthrow a foreign government, all to protect its corporate interests. And it's not just any corporation, it's Chiquita Bananas. Yes, you heard that right, the banana company. Let's break down the CIA's involvement in the 1954 overthrow of the Guatemalan government, and why Chiquita was at the heart of it. In the early 1950s, Guatemala was a country in political turmoil, but also one of the largest producers of bananas in the world. At the center of its industry was a company known back then as United Fruit Company, which would later become Chiquita. Now Guatemala's new president, Jacobo Arbenz, had big plans to reform the country. He wanted to redistribute the land to the poor, especially to peasants who worked on large plantations, many of which were owned by foreign companies like, guess who? The United Fruit Company. The problem? United Fruit did not want to give up their land. Arbenz's government passed a land reform law in 1952, which was expropriate unused land and redistribute it to the poor. But much of the land it targeted belonged to the United Fruit Company. And that, my friends, was a huge problem for the company's interests. So, what did the United States do? Well, let's just say the company had some very influential friends. At the time, the U.S. government was already in the middle of the Cold War, and they saw Arbenz's government as a potential communist threat. Even though there was little evidence that Arbenz was a communist, the U.S. was deeply paranoid about any leftist government in Latin America. The United Fruit Company had deep ties to the U.S. government. In fact, one of their top lobbyists was none other than former U.S. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles, whose law firm actually represented United Fruit. His brother, Allen Dulles, was the head of the CIA. Talk about a family connection. With such powerful connections, United Fruit had a direct line to influence U.S. policy, and they used it. In 1954, the CIA, under Allen Dulles' direction, orchestrated a covert operation to overthrow Arbenz. This operation was known as Operation PB Success. The CIA waged a full psychological campaign. They dropped fake leaflets over Guatemala, claiming that an army of communist forces was invading. They even sent a few planes to fly over the country, dropping bombs and making loud noises to create panic. Amid all this chaos, Arbenz was forced to resign in June of 1954. He fled the country, and the CIA-backed Castillo Armas took power, effectively ending the land reform program. With Arbenz out of the way, United Fruit could breathe easily again. Their vast lands previously threatened by reform were secured, and while the people of Guatemala didn't fare so well, the company got exactly what it wanted. It wasn't just one-off. The CIA's covert operations in Latin America would continue throughout the Cold War, toppling governments from Chile to Nicaragua. But the 1954 Guatemalan coup remains one of the clearest examples of corporate interests shaping U.S. foreign policy.